brothers and sisters in Christ from our church, from the St. Paul's Church in Habitana, and of course our esteemed guests from St. Mina Coptic Orthodox Church in Homedale. We're really happy that you guys are here today. It's not often that we get to conjoin and have one concelebrated Eucharist liturgy. So we really hope that this bond grows from this day forth, and next time we'll also attend the Youth Fellowship meeting at your church. So we'll coordinate with Mina for the next meeting. So right now we'll do just a very brief history of how Christianity came to India and how the Syriac Orthodox Church was formed and developed and how it grew over the past few centuries. Basil here will also continue the presentation and talk about how we have separate, distinct saints in our church too that were particular in forming the orthodoxy in our church in India. So first, just a general geography lesson. Where are we located? So here's the map of India, and right here on the very southern tip, I'm not sure, can you guys see? So right here is where we're located, on the very southern tip of Kerala. As you know, India is predominantly Hindus, Muslims, and Christians are the minority. So according to our history and our beliefs, it was in AD 52 that St. Thomas came to India. He landed off close to the city of Malayankara, which is why we are known as the Christians of Malankara. It is there that he established the first Christian community in India. As you all know, at the day of Pentecost, all the disciples received the power of prophesizing the good news to the world. So it is there that St. Thomas was given the opportunity to travel to parts of Asia, including India. And as St. Thomas is our patron saint, as St. Mark is to the Egyptian church. So in AD 325, there was a synod convened, and in that synod, the Eastern Hemisphere was actually put underneath the Syrian Orthodox Church, the Patriarchate of Antioch. And so we officially became part of the Syrian Church in AD 352. But as you all know, there are a lot of other religions in the area, such as the Hindus and Muslims. And what happened was St. Thomas didn't officially start a throne as St. Peter did in Antioch and Rome, or St. Mark did in Alexandria. So what happened was, because there was a lack of ecclesiastical power and an official throne, the Christian church actually started to diminish over the years. And one day, the Bishop of Edessa, or Joseph, he had a dream, and he dreamed the terrible situation that is happening in India, where the Christians were actually being persecuted by the Hindus and the Muslims in the area. So what he did was he sent Thomas of Cana to travel to India and to report back to him what he saw there. So when Thomas of Cana traveled to Kerala, he reported back saying that the number of Christians were actually diminishing because of the persecution from the other religions. So a synod was convened by the Patriarch of Syria in, I didn't say what year, but Patriarch of Syria, and the decision was to send 400 Syrian Christians to Kerala to settle there and to grow the Syriac Orthodox Church in Kerala. And so because of these 400 Syrian Christians traveling from Syria to the state of Kerala, the Syriac Orthodox Church began to flourish. They brought over the Syriac Orthodox rite, the liturgy, the faith, and they formed an organization to the church too, hierarchy, clergy, and ordained more priests. So it is that time forward that the Syriac Orthodox Church really grew in the state of Kerala. And we became known as the Syriac Orthodox Christians of the Malankara Church. Now, as centuries progressed, you all know about colonization. So in the 16th and 17th century, the Portuguese actually came to India, particularly the southern parts of India too, especially Kerala and Tamil Nadu, and the Roman Catholic Church were a great influence. So they also converted many Hindus over to Roman Catholicism. And then in the 19th century, Great Britain came and colonized India, and they began to convert many Hindus to Protestantism. So the Anglican Church was also very prominent. So today, we actually have a great deal of Christians. In the state of Kerala, we have actually the largest Christian community in the country of India. So we have Syrian Orthodox Christians, a lot of Catholics, and a lot of Protestants as well. So how has our church grown today? So we have about 2 million Syriac Orthodox Indian followers across the globe. And under the Syrian Orthodox Patriarch, we have 3 archdioceses. We have the Archdiocese of North America, America and Canada, the Archdiocese of Europe, and the special group, as we like to call it, the Global Canaanite Community. As I mentioned earlier, there were 400 Syrians that came back in the 4th century to start the Syriac Orthodox Church. And so when they intermarried with the Indian locals, they passed on the Syriac blood. So that community actually tried to keep themselves pure of the Syriac blood, and they're known as the Canaanite Church. They're still under the Syrian Patriarchate, but they're a little different from us in that they have original Syrian blood in them. And so they only tend to marry within their community. And we actually have a Canaanite church just about 15-20 minutes from here. And it's the same liturgy, same customs, same traditions, just they have the original Syrian blood from back in the 4th century. So in order to take care of the administrative duties in India, because the Syriac Patriarch is all the way in Damascus, the Patriarch ordained a Catholicos of the East to take care of Indian affairs. So the Catholicos of the East currently sits in Kerala, and he has under him 19 archdioceses, which would include all the various archdioceses of India, as well as the Middle East, and Australia, and any other parts of Asia. And it's headquartered in Buttonbush, which I'll show you shortly. And so our hierarchy, so our recently elected Patriarch, His Holiness Monomor Ignatius Upfront II, who used to be the Archbishop of the Eastern Syrian Orthodox Church here. So we're very close with him, and he really loves Indian food, comes here a lot, and he's very openly with us about just about every affair that we have with him. So in all of our celebrations, we reach out to him, and he's always here supporting us. Not many of the patriarchs actually travel to India, and you'll come to learn the few that actually did and have become saints in our church. His Holiness actually traveled to India just about last year after he became ordained, and it was a great blessing for our church. And to his right, we have the Catholicos of the East, or Basilios Thomas I, who takes care of Indian affairs in the Archdiocese of India. And so, this is our Archbishop, Martitos Yelgo, and again, as I stated, he's under the Syriac Orthodox Patriarch, not underneath the Catholicos of the East. And he's been here for over a decade now, right? Yeah. And he's got a very close relationship with Bishop David, and we see Bishop David at our functions as well. So it's great to see this communion going on between our churches. Here's the patriarchal headquarters where the current patriarch resides in Damascus. And this is the patriarchal headquarters in India, in Buttonbush, Kerala. And here, it's kind of hard to see, but these are all the bishops and majority of the clergy. And our late lamented patriarch, or Ignatius Zaka I. This is his very last trip to India before he departed. And now to talk about the saints of the church, I'll hand it over to Basil.
Hey everyone, thanks for giving us that brief history. And so now I'm just going to cover the saints of the church and famous places in India. So the Coptic Orthodox Church and the Syrian Orthodox Church share a lot of the same saints. Saint Mary, the Mother of God, is one of them. And another very prevalent saint in our church is Saint Peter, also the patron saint of this church too. And he established the throne of Antioch, and from that succession, that's where all our patriarchs succeed to. We also recognize the 12 apostles. Their feast day is celebrated in June, and they've laid the foundation for the church. And also Saint Thomas, who is, as Jordanus mentioned, the patron saint of India. after Christ ascended to heaven, he gave all the apostles a mission to go around the world and to preach the gospel. So St. Thomas is a very important saint because he came to India to spread the good news there. And here are some pictures of some of the famous saints that are entombed in Maningara. Saint Gregorio Sabaramana, who's another patron saint of this church. Our right altar is dedicated to him. Saint Ignatius Elias III, who is another one of our previous patriarchs, who is the only patriarch to be entombed in India. So he's a very famous saint in India also. Saint Basilios Erdo, and Saint Athanasius Paulos, Mor Gregorios Abdul Jalil, and Saint Ostatios Sliva, who were bishops who came from the Middle East to settle disputes within the church in Maningara. Okay, so I'm going to go with a brief history of each of the saints in India. So our first saint is Saint Gregorios Aparamana. His feast day is on November 2nd. And he's the first canonized saint in the Orthodox churches in India. He was a very big advocate for the youth movements in India. And our youth group, our national youth group, the MG SOSA, is named after him. Lord Gregorios Syrian Orthodox Student Association. And he was a very big advocate for the youth movements in India, and a lot of them have started in America too and have grown here also. Another important fact about him is he started many institutions such as monasteries, seminaries, health centers in India to further the church there and to help with the people. He led a very saintly and monastic life and lived a life full of humility. He observed each day with fast and much prayer and reverence to God. He was very open to every group of people and converted a lot of Hindus and Muslims to our church to help further the growth of our church. On the left side is a picture of the tomb of St. Gregorios. The middle is the church where he's entombed at, and on the right is an icon of St. Gregorios of Panama. Okay, our next saint is Saint Basilios Erdo, commonly known as Saint Basil of Kodamangalam. He was originally a bishop in the Middle East, but as Lorenz mentioned earlier, throughout the history of our church weakened a lot, and we didn't have a lot of bishops, to mold the growth of the church. So Saint Basilios, at the old age of 92 years old, traveled by ship and by foot to India to help settle some of the disputes going on in India. He arrived at the Marthoma Charyapalli, which I'll pull up later, and he died in Kodamangalam and was entombed in that church. During his travels, there's a lot of recorded miracles that he performed during his trip and stay in India. And his feast day is celebrated on October 2nd and October 3rd. And a lot of people, a lot of pilgrims come from all over India to seek his intercession on October 2nd and October 3rd, regardless of caste or creed. On the left side is the tomb of St. Basilios Erdo. In the middle is the church where he's entombed at. And on the right is an icon of St. Basil. So there's a story that during his death, he died while praying inside the altar of the church. And as he was praying, the church bells started ringing out of nowhere. No one was ringing them. And this was at the time of his death. And it's believed that the cross also bowed down towards the church as he was dying. So that's another miracle that's performed by him during while he was dying in India. Here's another famous place in India. It's called Manakkada, and it's a very, very blessed place. They recognize Saint Mary, and every year during the month of September, during the first and second week, there's a huge festival commemorating the birth of Saint Mary. And as you can see on the right side, inside the altar, there's an icon of Saint Mary. Usually, according to the traditions of the church, you're not allowed to have any pictures inside the altar. So as per the request of the patriarch in the early centuries, he requested that that picture always be covered. But so usually when you go inside and you see the church, it's always covered. But as per the request of the people there, they really like the picture, I guess. So they asked the patriarch, on the last day of Qurbana, that they unveil the picture of Saint Mary. And so they still practice that today. Every Manakkada Perunnal, on the last day, they'll uncover that picture and they'll perform the Holy Liturgy in the name of Saint Mary. And also one more fun fact about Manakkada. They have one of the largest processions in all of Asia. So they're in the Guinness Book of World Records for one of the largest processions in India. So it's pretty awesome. Okay, so our next saint, Saint Ignatius Elias III. His feast day was recently, about 2 weeks ago? Yeah, February 13th. And he was the 119th patriarch of the Syriac Orthodox Church. As Uranus mentioned, not a lot of patriarchs moved out of the Middle East, but since there was a lot of problems going on in India, he decided to come to Manangara and to be with the faithful and to further the faith. He arrived in the 1930s to help settle the disputes in Manangara at the time and convened many synods at a lot of other ancient churches in India. So after reaching Maninikara, that's where he's entombed now, he decided to stay in India permanently because of his poor health conditions. And there's a famous quote by him saying, "This place offers us much comfort and we desire to remain here permanently." So him and some other bishops decided to stay in India, stay in Maninikara, and live the rest of his life there. He lived a very saintly and prayerful life in Maninikara and started a dayara there, or a monastery. And he soon entered the heavenly abode on February 13th. And he's the only patriarch ever to be buried in India. And on the left side, you can see the tomb of St. Ignatius. The middle that's the church or the monastery where he is entombed at. And the right side is an icon of St. Ignatius Elias III. So this comes to the conclusion of our presentation. So we wanted to conclude by saying, the saints are very important in our church, and I know they're very important in the Coptic Orthodox Church too. They've been great role models of how to live our spiritual life. They've furthered the faith of the church, established many monasteries throughout the history of Manangara. It is because of their prayers and because of their fervent effort that we are here today, praising the Lord in the great states of America. All the saints of the Orthodox Church sacrificed their lives to uphold and defend the true Orthodox faith. And in the same way, when we go out into our communities and in our churches and in our schools, we must also further that responsibility to carry the same Orthodox faith. So thank you again for coming, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Your Highness, for the small presentation. If you're going to talk, it's a long story.